Hello. So today we have here Mr. Ray Ellis, former NFL player, and Mr. Ellis also. Gosh, he's got a great story, and I'm so excited to talk to Mr. Ellis for probably a myriad of reasons. He just surprised me with a story that he's part of the NIL. I mean, we've been talking. We just did a NIL part two. Um, Educational piece just a couple of weeks ago. Actually, maybe it wasn't even maybe 1 week. And he said he's part of the Ed O'Bannon story. So I'm really, he can't leave without giving us some information on that. And then, there were four of us that talked about, our own how we help student athletes and parents. I personally do workshops for parents and help parents understand NIL and their part in it and what they now have to be on the lookout for. So I'm definitely going to be tapping into you. I will be calling and emailing you and asking you and interviewing you so that we can prepare these parents for NIL, because I think this came really fast and it's getting bigger and faster, and it's kind of still at this wild west moment, and I don't know that the parents are ready, right, for kind of what's to come. So can you tell us, Mr. Ellis, can you just, first of all, tell us about like how you started in the NFL, and tell us a little bit about your NFL story.
Well, NFL story goes way back because it happened in 1981. First drafted by the Philadelphia Eagles. I attended Ohio State University. I was a four-year letterman at Ohio State. I started for 3 years. It was time for my experience as a student athlete to end. I studied communications at Ohio State University, but then on draft day, things kind of changed because I thought I was going to get drafted early, but I got drafted late. In fact, I was the next to the last person drafted. On that day, one of my best friends, who later became best friends or close friend to Walter Payton, was Todd Bell. God rest his soul. We lost Todd as we have lost Walter as well. But Todd was drafted by the Chicago Bears in the fourth round, and he went on to have a very successful career there. And but I went on to the Philadelphia Eagles to play football there, and I was excited about getting drafted, but then I was a little nervous about playing a position I played before. But it was a position that my friend Todd Bell, who went on to the Chicago Bears, had played 4 years at Ohio State University and played that position very well. So I took notes, mental notes, and I basically just would revisit my experience of watching Todd play that position. And I thought that would be the approach I would take to the position as I entered into my professional career, and it worked out for me. And my experience of the National Football League started in 1981, as I said. I was the next to the last person drafted in the entire draft, but I ended up making the team, and played with the Eagles for. I was there for six. Sorry for. I was with the Eagles for 6 years. 81, 82, 83, 84, 85. For 5 years, I'm sorry, and then I played my other 2 years with the Cleveland. And my Walter Payton story is that my life changed after a game against the Chicago Bears in Chicago in 1983, my third year in the league, and I made a play. I made a tackle on Walter, and it was as we as ball players know, it was a nice tackle, and but it was one that got the attention of not only people in the media and those who write stories and talk about things, but it caught the attention of my coaches, and as a result of that, they made some changes in the lineup, and I became a starter the next week.
So tell us about the tackle though. What was different about it? I mean, there's tackles that happen in football every day. So what was different about that tackle?
The fact that it was Walter Payton, the way that I hit him, he fumbled the ball. We recovered the fumble. One of my teammates recovered the fumble, and we was in a position that we could have went in and scored, but we didn't. Walter doesn't fumble. Walter did not
Right.
fumble the ball.
Right.
And, and very few people. Walter was a running back that he preferred to punish you than allow you to punish him.
Right.
And I was able to hit him in such a way that, his body flipped over, a few times in the air, and the ball came out, and we jumped on and all that stuff. So it was one of those things that years later, my daughter, who wasn't even born at the time, she saw the video highlight one time, and she said to me, "Well, Dad, if you hit him like that, I could see how come they would let you start."
Right.
And but yeah, people didn't get those kind of hits on Walter very many times throughout his career. He usually was dishing the punishment out to people.
So make sure you send me that video. I've got a picture of it, but I want that video because I would like to make sure that when we run this, I want to definitely, I'm going to pull out the clip, and I want to definitely, I won't have to search through 100 videos. I'm sure you've got it, right? So
it's interesting you say that. Yes, some will have to look because the league is very protective of their assets, if you will. But somewhere that's out there. I think I have the 1983 season of the Philadelphia Eagles highlight film, and it's in that.
So it's in the 1983
Philadelphia Eagles highlight reel. Yes.
Okay. Wow. So, I love when I hear moments like that. It's like something so special at a particular, one particular moment in time that you can actually it happened this time, and it changed my life, and so I love that story. I was talking to Bob Golick, I think it was day before yesterday that I interviewed, and he's got like that life moment too that changed his life. So let's fast forward to after after that particular, that particular point in your career. What was the next highlight moment for you in football, or did you move on to something else, or did you have another big football moment for you?
Well,
do you have a big football moment, or?
I would say that another big moment. They allowed me. I was put into the starting lineup, and the very next game that we played, I believe it was the Washington Redskins, and a big moment for me was that. I'm sorry, it wasn't the Washington Redskins. It was the New York Giants, and they put me in the starting lineup, and I was determined that if I was ever given a chance, I was going to do the best I could, and certainly I didn't ever want to be put into a starting lineup and then taken out of the starting lineup. So I wanted to do everything I could to secure my position. So I think the first game I started in my life at pro football, that game I made like 18 tackles. And
18
tackles for a defensive back is not normal.
Right.
And it's really a shame that I had to make 18 tackles. We should have been doing much better than that.
Right.
That strong safety shouldn't be making 18 tackles, but I did. I had the opportunity to make the tackles, and I did. And I think that helped secure my position. And,
wow.
And then
that had to be some kind of record, right?
The coach made light of it. He, in the meetings, they talked about it a couple different times. I don't know if it was a record. I don't know. But again, it's one of those things where you don't. Those who play the game, we know you don't want your strong safety having to make 18 tackles.
Right. Exactly.
Guys up front are not necessarily doing their job if the ball is getting to the next level. And if I've got to make 18 tackles, that's a lot of tackles, yeah. So it's a number. I remember that, and then I had another opportunity a couple years later to improve that number, but that's another conversation.
So now, was Philadelphia the only team you played for?
No, I actually finished my career with the Cleveland Browns.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Todd Bell, interesting enough, Todd Bell, the Philadelphia Eagles, there was an exchange of the team ownership.
Mm-hmm.
And the team was sold by Norman Brayman. I'm sorry, the team was sold by Leonard Toast to a gentleman by the name of Norman Brayman.
Mm-hmm.
And so Norman Brayman owned the team for several years. And, when he bought the team from Leonard Toast, I had a chance after I was put in the starting lineup at the end of the 83 season. I started maybe the last 4 or 5 games, and I was very productive. And then the next year after that, which would have been the 85 season, I started the entire. I started at the end of 83, 84, and then 84, 85. I played that whole season, and I renegotiated my contract. And the new ownership was not happy with the numbers that I negotiated. So and they fired our coach. And when they fired our coach, they brought in from Chicago, Buddy Ryan, who became the head coach. And I had never got a chance to meet Buddy. I've heard a lot about him. He had a big personality, all that type of stuff. The first time I ever saw him, he came to my locker. It was in the off season. I was dressed in a suit. And he asked me something to the point, where you been or whatever. And I said to him, I had lunch with my boss. It was off season. He looks at me squarely in the face and says to me, "Your boss, I'm your boss." And so I found that, kind of humorous. I chuckled a little bit. And the next thing he says to me is, "Todd Bell wants your job." And Todd, one of my best friends in life, we were roommates when I first got in college, and I knew Todd. After all, like I said, when they moved me to strong safety, I was trying to emulate him. I knew how good he was and what he did.
Sure.
And but that's all he said to me. And I asked him, I simply said to him, I didn't think about it. I said, "Why does he want my job? There's 31 other jobs out there he can get. Why does he want mine?" And the fact was, Buddy wanted him to come there and take my job. That's it. So that was his way of letting me know that,
right.
Rather have Todd than have me. So it kind of played its way out. And when it did, I found my way in Cleveland, and Todd found his way in Philadelphia, and he played for Buddy. And I finished my career in Cleveland playing with Marty Schottenheimer and the Browns.
Wow. Okay. And so NFL is done now, and what was next for you? I mean, I was talking to I've talked to so many guys, and everyone kind of has different paths after the NFL. What was your path after?
Well, interesting enough, I was one of those guys that early in my experience in athletics, I come to realize that it's that was that thing that was out there. They said the NFL stands for not for long, which kind of let us know that, hey, you can do this. It's a short-term work experience. It's not a career. You're not going to do this for 30 years of your life, but the game itself is a part of this ecosystem, that there's so many aspects to this ecosystem that have career opportunities where you can still stay involved in the sport and provide for your family over a period of time. You just got to find your niche and what you like.
Right.
And so I took the time out to look at a couple different things. And so I had a couple different work experiences related, but I took entrepreneurial and the philanthropy route, where I wanted to try to help people from my community that have been so supportive of me. And part of that, and part of the way I would accomplish that is there were a couple entrepreneurial endeavors that I pursued. I was in the printing business. I was in the microbrewery business. And then I got involved in digital media and the creating of original content, sports related content, and doing podcasting. And more recently, my interest has been in gaming and also creating sports documentaries and having camps to provide information to the next generation of how to get themselves on the correct path, so that if they have an interest in doing something as it relates to gaming in any capacity, whether they want to be a database administrator, a programmer, software engineer, whatever, in gaming, that same skill set that they would have in gaming would allow them to be employed in another industry. But it's all about IT and them getting on the path of which they can have a very successful career long term. Gaming.
Wow.
And then also,
wow.
you could be a gamer. You can play the games and make millions of dollars. I know there's parents like my mom. When I was a kid, there were certain things that my mom allowed me to do or not do after a certain period of time because it interfered with some other things that she felt was more important. So, and a lot of them might have been recreational things, but still, some people view gaming as just something that's recreational, but at the same time, just like football, football is recreational when you're a kid and you're out there playing, but at the same time, it's also a job at some point in time in your life. So if you work on it, you get better, you may get that employment opportunity. Gaming is such that, again, it's one of those things, it's recreational, but if you work at it and you're good enough, there's a chance that you could have a short-term work experience and make a lot of money in it. And then it's also on the creative side, in terms of having the ability to create games or be an employee inside of gaming is what I want the community of people that look like me to understand that, hey, this is something that's new and you should consider pursuing an opportunity in this space.
So you and I are getting ready to have a whole other conversation about that. Not today, but trust me, I will be calling you up for a meeting after this because it is something that, I like these like unique opportunities. I'm all over those. And that's what, that like I said, that's going to be a sidebar conversation. What I do want to talk about is something that I heard you talk about. And that was the Ed O'Bannon case. And you said that you were involved in that. Can you tell us a little bit about how you were involved? Because in the whole NIL market right now, or NIL, it's blowing up. It's, all of these agents are jumping on to get an NIL kid, and, I'm looking at these kids that are getting $5,000 for a social media post or a brand that is, getting ready to pay a whole slew of kids to represent their brand for social media purposes. And in one respect, I'm happy. In another respect, I'm nervous because I'm like, are they exploiting these kids? I've seen some posts that I'm not really excited about, them telling, oh, my grandmother died, or, they want them to tell their story. And then they do this one post. So now are these kids hungry now because they think, oh, okay, well, all I got to do is go sell another story, one to this brand and next to that brand. And, where is this all going? So, that's one thing that's just, that's just me, but I just want to know, would like you to tell us a little bit about how this all started, and then of course your outcome in the case, and then just give me your thoughts, maybe a 1-2 punch on where you think this may be going.
Well, it's interesting to hear your perspective because your perspective is not far from what's being said by a lot of people, in terms of the business model, the structure to name, image, and likeness. What is it? Is there some consistency in how one should go about it? And, my experience from the very beginning when it all started, takes me back to my days in college when I played at Ohio State University, and we were, we had a chance to come out to Arizona and play in the Fiesta Bowl. And I think it was probably the Friday before the Saturday game, we typically go out and we go through what's called a walkthrough. And that's simply what we do. We just walk through plays and we just talk and communicate one another and exchange information between the players and the coaches. And it's not really intense, but it's just kind of a pre-test, if you will. If it was a practice test, so it's a practice walkthrough just to go over stuff. And what we did was we walked out on the field, and I mean, this is literally what happened and how all this came to mind. And this happened, like I said, back in 1980, Christmas of 1980. And we came out on the field, and there was a certain kind of shoe that I would wear on grass, and we were going to play on grass. And so I wore Converse All-Stars on grass. And Ohio State was such that anybody who had a shoe, they bought their shoe to us, to the university. Either we purchased, I don't know how that deal was structured. We had several shoes, and you could wear whatever shoe you wanted to. Nobody ever told you what shoe you wanted to wear or had to wear. So as we're going through this walkthrough, at the beginning of it, everybody's coming out of the locker room, and our coach, who had been on the staff it was his second year, because Woody had got fired 2 years prior to that for punching a guy on the sidelines in the Clemson game. So the new coach was Earl Bruce, and he grabbed a megaphone and screamed and told everybody to go in the locker room if you do not have Nikes on, and do not come back out until you have Nikes on your feet. And I, of course, had Converse on, and I'm looking around at everybody, because this is the first time I heard this type of stuff before. And I'm like, what the hell is this all about? And so I had to go in, change my, and I wasn't happy. I was pissed off about it. I was the captain of the team at that time, but it's like, what is this all about? Because we never, ever had that experience in my 4 years, and this one game comes up. And I guess what had happened is Earl, who was different than Woody didn't care about this. He didn't care. You could wear whatever you wanted. He didn't care. Change shoes every game at halftime. He didn't care. But I guess they entered into some type of contractual agreement where the university was going to receive a certain amount of money for having the players wear Nikes.
Sure.
As far as I was concerned, that should be an individual choice for me on this field. And this is the last football game I might play in my life. I don't know. You're not guaranteed that. Even if the NFL drafts you, that doesn't mean you're going to make the team. So
absolutely,
I was concerned about, okay, I'm at least trying to make an impression on these scouts that may be watching this game. The last thing I want to do is be concerned about my shoes, because believe it or not, most people know this, but athletes, we have they all kind of stuff, superstition that we're concerned about this. If you don't eat the right food, the right day, the same temperature, all that, whatever.
Yeah.
And so, but one thing for sure, you don't want to mess with their shoes. You do not want to mess with an athlete's shoes, and certainly not at the last minute force him to change or something he's not comfortable. And so that happened, and then also my experience that week. I've been to 3 bowls prior to that, and so I know what it's like when we're there. It was my last college game, which could have been the last football game I ever played in my life. And I remember seeing some of the younger children and other family members of the administrative staff and the coaching staff with us, and at dinners with us, and on the plane with us. And those things had not happened before when we went to other bowl games. And what I realized right then is that, okay, well, I found out later, but I had made the assumption that, okay, there must have been some money exchange somewhere that allowed them to foot the bill for these other people that came out. And also the reason why we had to wear these other shoes. And all that had to do with because of the fact that here are these football players who are going to be in this game. Millions of people are going to be watching all over the world. And if they have the shoes on their feet, then that's going to expose this brand. And okay, so that's what that's all about. Because that ain't, you didn't ask me, Ray, what's the best shoe you want to wear? It ain't, that's right. But if it allowed you all this money. Well, as I went through, as I participated in the Ed O'Bannon case, and I pleaded my case, and I shared the information with them about my experience. And of course, the fact that I went to Ohio State, you know, a major institution involved in sports, that they wanted us, you know, to somehow be involved in the case. I told them what my experience was, and I felt that that was wrong for them to do that,
Right.
you know, and I not get compensated, and then take the money and bring out the families of the other members and not bring you. I said to them, if they were thinking about players, they should have at least went to the seniors and said, here's what we're going to do for this, maybe your last game ever. We're going to bring your parents out and your family out so they can experience
Absolutely.
it. And it didn't happen like that. Well, fast forward years later, and I'll get to that because I should probably share some of it before I go there. And also, fast forward to 2006, I moved to Arizona. And when I moved to Arizona, I was working for a company, and I got a phone call at work. And I don't know, I forget if it was on my cell phone or if it was on the office. And it was a gentleman by the name of Michael Hosfeld. Michael's the attorney who handled the Ed O'Bannon case. And he was calling me because, you know, I don't know how he got my name, my information, but, you know, I did. There's some information about me out there. So anyway, he asked me, he shared the information with me about the lawsuit and asked me would I be interested. He said he would fly out, have lunch with me, and we could talk about it. So he did. We had lunch to talk about it. But before he did, I spoke with the Ohio State University athletic director by the name of Gene Smith. And Gene happens to be, I'm from Canton, Ohio. He's from Cleveland, Ohio, which is an hour up the road from Canton. And so I said to him, I said, Gene, you know, I have a couple of questions I want to ask you, you know, based upon this, you know, this thing that's out here, this lawsuit possibly. And some people have called me and contacted me about it, and I wanted to share some information with you and ask you a few questions. And I said, I know I kind of wear my emotions on my sleeve, so I don't mean to be disrespectful to you, but I just want to ask you a few questions. And so we were going back and forth, but we weren't making any ground. I wasn't convincing him. He wasn't convincing me. You know, I didn't maybe buy into what he said. He didn't buy into what I said. And so it got to the point where he said to me, he said, Ray, you know, we're not getting anywhere with this. This call, I appreciate you calling me, but really, you know, we're not happy. What I'm saying, I'm not happy. You know, what you saying, we believe kind of two different things here, maybe.
Right.
My position is different than yours. He said, but I will say this to you. He said, there's a systematic way to go about change. And I said to him, I said, Gene, thank you so much. You know, really, we don't, you know, we could end the conversation right there, man, because what you said to me, that's all I really needed to hear. And I hung up the phone and I called the lawyer, Michael Hosfeld, and I told him that I was ready to have that meeting with him. When did he want to fly out? I shared with him that what Gene had said, and I said, it's time for me to make the change. And
right.
The systematic is that we got to go to court. So let's do it. I'm ready. And,
wow.
That was how I got involved. And then the aspect of that after I talked to Michael Hosfeld, Michael had also got involved because they had started making the video games, and they were making college video games. And in making college video games, I'll never forget, because I bought my son, and my son, I think I bought my nephew had a game, and I go on to visit him, and when I went to visit him, his dad, my brother-in-law, showed me this game that he bought for his son. And he asked me, was I getting paid for it? Now, I don't know.
You were on the video game? You were on the EA Sports game?
Yes. And I don't know why he would ask that question, but that's what he asked me. Are you getting paid for this? And I, at the time, was working at a computer job training company in Philadelphia, a 501c3. It was called People for People. Reverend Dr. Herb Lusk, a former running back for the Eagles, a pastor. That's his company. He founded that 501c3, the faith-based organization, and we were doing, C plus and C++ training for people who were on welfare who had to get a skill set and go into the workforce. And so we were training people. So I was doing that type of work. So I was really interested about this new computer game. Maybe we could teach people at our facility how to do this.
Correct.
So when my brother-in-law showed this to me, I said, no. And then what I did is I went back, I did some research, and I reached out to Sony Entertainment, and I was able to contact a lady named Felice Standiford, a Black woman who worked for Sony at that time. And Sony, of course, had the, what was the game? PlayStation, I think they had back in the day.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I talked to her and asked her a few questions, and we started a business relationship, and I stayed in contact with her, and I talked to a few other people, and then Michael Hosfeld shows up, and I told Mike about my experience about this game, seeing myself in this video game for the first time in my life, and nobody ever called me or asked me anything about it if I was interested in having myself be a part of the game. Because when I looked at that and they had the Ohio State team, everybody who was on my team was in that game. Right number, right position, all that stuff. That was me. That wasn't an avatar. That was Ray Ellis, number 27. And so I
just have to interject here. So you started out with the shoes. That was nothing compared to the video game.
No, the video game, exactly. Well, the shoe game, so to speak, as we say in the hood, the shoe game has been around for a long time, and a lot of people have made money off of the shoe game. But now the video game is here.
Right.
And the fact of the matter about the video game, it was something that was new. And for me, in my mind, my mind started racing because, again, I was in this position where I ran the organization where we train these people. And I just pictured, from when my brother-in-law told me, I just pictured how somebody could have fun with this game and how it could be shared, the experience could be shared with people who are actually in the game, with people who love the sport. And so I thought instantly how you could play against guys who are actually, the guys, I'm a real guy, that's me, And so I started thinking all those things like that, and my mind just went crazy. And I thought about how I could get involved, and how I could start a company, and things we could do. But
you weren't thinking about the illegality of it at the time, right?
No. Well, here's the thing about it. When I started thinking about, again, money and revenue, I did start thinking about, okay, wait a second, they're not paying us. My brother-in-law asked me,
right?
And I wasn't getting any of this money, but I knew there is a way that I could get into business and find a way to share in some of the revenue opportunities that are out there in this sport. Unlike EA Sports, because see, the bad thing about them, I had an uncle who I got into IT because my uncle, my mother's stepbrother, his wife and him had a company, and they were business alliance partners with Oracle. So at the highest level in the biggest companies in the world, I had some relationship with them already. And so when I saw this opportunity, you're right, that's what I started thinking about. Okay, there's a way they could do something. My uncle used to always say to me, he would say, you know what? He said, there's some people out there that are so greedy, they prefer to have 100% of a grape than 50% of a watermelon. And I was like, I'm always going to take that 50% of that watermelon. They could have 100% of that grape. And that is the way EA Sports treated the athletes when we were trying to pursue an opportunity to share some of the revenue they're generating from these games. You're taking my likeness and my image, and you're putting it into this game, and you're selling it. And I'm here with you in conversations with you, like to negotiate something so that I could share in some of the proceeds as well as you. Not equally, just negotiate, whatever that term might be. But rather than them share, they said they have to have all or nothing. So they just stopped making the game. That's how selfish they were. They stopped making the college game so that the student athletes wouldn't get any of that money from those games, from those EA Sports, And so that, to me, that was ugly. That was nasty. That said a lot about them. And I just wanted to fight for what was right. And I
So,
knew that.
so I heard you say, so did you guys get anything though when you won
Oh
the
yeah.
case?
Oh yes. Not a whole lot of money, but we got
Yeah.
something. I probably, my daughter, who was an alum of Pepperdine University, I probably got enough to pay interest on her student loans for a month. but, but I did get some. I'm grateful and thankful that I got something.
Yeah.
And I'm more grateful and thankful. Part of the story I need to tell is what I argued for. An example that I'm not sure Michael wanted me in my when I was debriefed or whatever, when they took my statement, I found a way to say and give the example of how I thought the money should be used, about those seniors and their families should have the experience of coming out. Well, lo and behold, in 2000, I think it was 16, Ohio State University played in the Fiesta Bowl here in Arizona. And I got a call from a friend of mine, and he was telling me that his son, Eric Glover Williams, was playing for Ohio State and coming out to the Fiesta Bowl. And in fact, the family were going to have the opportunity to come out to the game, but they were going to have to purchase their airline tickets and their hotel rooms. But the school or the tournament was going to put the money aside and reimburse them after they came out and traveled and paid for the hotel and the plane and stuff like that. So things that I was hoping for, that my mother would have paid for my mother to come out, which again they
try to catch your phone, your ringer.
Yeah. Well, that's I'll turn that off, and that's that is. But what I suggested, it started happening. They started paying for those kids. So now, if it's the Fiesta Bowl, the Rose Bowl, the Orange Bowl, the Gator Bowl, I'm pretty sure the family members of those student athletes have the opportunity to travel to the game at their own expense, stay in a hotel at their own expense, but will be reimbursed of that money they spent by those bowl organizations.
Oh, really?
Yes.
That's awesome. So, okay, so the whole EA thing, the EA Sports has come up back and forth, and I think I've heard over the years that, people have given them a lot of people want to see that come back around. I think there was some rumblings of it. I'm sure you've heard it in the last couple of years. There's been rumblings of EA Sports throwing that back in the universe, but that was before this NIL ruling came down, right? Or this new one. So now you haven't heard anything. So where we are today, with the new Wild Wild West, with everybody coming up with something different. And to me, I think they should. I think there was a major mistake, and I want to hear what you think. I think there was a major mistake that the NCAA should have came down with some kind of benchmark. I don't think they should have just said, okay, we're just going to let y'all do what y'all want to do. Then, okay, we're going to just throw our hands up. Now there's nothing, and everything is going haywire. What's your thoughts on this? I think they should have done something.
Well, I still think there's an opportunity for them to do some things. They can create group licensing opportunities. There's a model out there already at the National Football League level, even though people say these people are not pros. The only time you talk about pros is in sports. When there's other career paths for people to take, they don't identify them as pros.
Right.
They're employees, and so. That's what, these young men and young women are going to have an opportunity to be an employee. They can be independent contractors, representing themselves. But there's a group licensing model, and it's very similar in the National Football League. When the team makes the playoffs, everybody on that team, if you're Tom Brady and you threw 5 touchdowns, or if you're a special teams player and you're the kicker, and you just kick the ball off twice in the game, and Tom Brady was on the field for 100-something plays, and the game's over, and you guys win, that kicker is going to get the same check that Tom Brady's going to get. Okay.
Right.
So that's an example of how, if you want to do group licensing, you could share that, so that if you're the GOAT, Tom Brady, or if you're a special teams player, you both contribute to the team, so you get the same amount of money. So these group
Right.
licensing, if, for example, the shoe contract that maybe Ohio State signed back then, they could
Right.
simply say, hey, there's 100 guys on the team. Everybody on the team is going to get $2,500. You know,
Right.
that they could do the deal like that. They do it, as a matter of fact, when you travel. You know, they give you traveling money. When you go to a bowl, you get a couple $100 for travel expenses. They give you that because they're getting it from the bowl committee, and so they know how to do that. But they left it up for the individual. And all I say, when the individual, again, sports is in the field of entertainment. And entertainment is such that, again, there's no guarantee, and everybody is an individual. And so you're going to have to go at it very similar to the way those people do in entertainment. A lot of people have talent, but not everybody gets a record deal. A lot of people have talent, but not everybody gets a movie deal. You know, it's just another form of entertainment. And so those people in the industry are going to have to help you work through the system to find out how you get your money, until there is a system that comes up that disperses to all the participants. But until that happens, it's going to be an individual thing until somebody comes up with something different.
Right. Like NFTs and things of that nature.
Yes. And the fact of the matter is, I don't know. I think the only concern is that the boosters, the people who support the universities of their choice, sometimes they've been known. I have friends who have been investigators. They've been known to shake your hand, and sometimes one handshake is heavier than another handshake, and that's because one handshake might have a whole lot more money in it than the other handshake. You know, but those type of things
and the boosters can get involved in NIL as well.
Well, yeah, and they have their own way of doing things as well. But that's what I'm saying. The influence of money now. But some of these boosters own companies.
Absolutely. You took the words out of my mouth. These boosters own companies, and they can still do the exact same thing. They can do it through these agents, right? Because now you got agents now going and giving NIL deals where they couldn't before. Now they're giving NIL deals to, to some of these athletes.
Well, that's the thing about the agents. The agents, and not all agents are able to secure deals for their players. There's even times where players have brought deals to the table themselves. You know I was aggressive, and there were opportunities that I found out there for me, and I took them to my agent and had him look over it. And some we did, and some we didn't. You know, and there was a couple maybe he might have brought to me. But there are people out there, in networking. These are young men and young women who are going to have experiences in different environments with people who may have an interest in them as a brand, if you will, that can help promote or help sell their product. And
you're in a video. You're in a video.
Some people are going to be able to do that better than other people. And so it's just a matter of, again, how much time that the young people want to spend themselves, or if somebody else is going to spend the time, for them, bring a deal to them. But there's an opportunity that they certainly deserve if they do it. And here's the thing about it. As an example, during my time, my example I always made is because I'm of the same age. I knew that Michael Jackson's talent that he had as a singer, nobody stopped him from, getting paid and to use his talent on display on television or on concerts or whatever, or selling albums at 9 years old. He probably millions of dollars when he was 9, doing what, just the blessing that God had given him. So why are you going to take a young man who's 18 years old and tell him that with the talent that he has, the blessing he has, that he can't get paid? It's entertainment, whether it's singing, acting, dancing, whatever it is, it's entertainment. If you're good at it and people want to pay for it, then you should get paid.
So I want to ask you a couple of questions and then we're done, because otherwise I could talk to you forever, Mr. Ellis. Oh my God. Um, so two other questions. So just back on the Walter Payton. So what we're doing on the October 10th and 11th, with you can go to walterpayton34.com for the schedule if anyone's watching. And they want to know what the schedule is. It's walterpayton34.com. That's the schedule for the 10th and 11th. And it's also the week end of the Bears Raiders game for all of you Bears Raiders fans out there. So, you know, this is about legacy. What do you think about, you know, NFL players leaving legacy? I'm sure you're leaving a legacy. I've heard you mention that. What do you think about, you know, leaving? How important is it to leave a legacy? You know, especially professional athletes.
Well, very interesting that you say that, because I believe that's extremely important, because one of the people in my life that impacted my life so much was a person that never met me. I know some people that they knew, but they didn't know that I knew those people. But from a distance, I admired Muhammad Ali so much. And I admired the fact that even before we start talking about having access to a platform, Muhammad Ali had access to a platform of boxing where millions of people, he was heavyweight champion of the world. So people all over the world had an opportunity to hear what he had to say. And Muhammad Ali would take time to share stuff that was important to him. And it was important to me to see somebody like him do that, because many times in athletics, you know, people forget when you hear a comment from an athlete, it's very similar to what's happening now with you and I. The athlete is being interviewed. So the question, there was a prompt, and then he then just addressed what that prompt was. And so Muhammad Ali would take the time to let them know that there were other things that was concerning him, particularly about people that look like him and how they were been treated in this country, in this world. And I'll never forget, you know, one of the things that I saw of him, I think it was a David Cassidy interview back in the day. And, you know, he was talking about, you know, the opportunity that had been presented to him to go fight in the war. And he felt as if, you know, why should I go someplace to fight for something?
Keep talking.
For people who do not, you know, believe in me. They don't even believe in me. They don't even want to support me here in this country. I don't even have my freedom, my own rights in this supposed to be my country, but they want to send me to war to fight somebody else in their country. And those people haven't done a damn thing to me. And yet and still you want to send me over there to fight, and you're not fighting for me here. And you're not fighting for me here. You don't believe I have the same rights here, but yet and still you want me to go across the water to fight somebody, to give my life up for somebody else. And when I come back home, I can't even go to a restaurant, sit down at the counter and eat. And so those are things that I heard and I saw myself at 62 years old now. I was, some of the things I experienced, so I know what it's like. And I just feel as if, you know, athletes have the opportunity. That I always tell people, when you're an athlete, sometimes some people believe, you know, you've heard them say, we've all heard them say, you know, they're different. No, we're not different. We're human beings like everybody else. But because of what you accomplish on the field, there are times where you are invited into certain environments where maybe other minorities may not be. And
right.
You're allowed the opportunity to participate or certainly hear certain conversations that's going on. Those conversations could be about business opportunities. They could be about jobs. They could be about, you know, plans, strategies, whatever. But when you're there and you are the voice of the minority community and the only voice, you have to speak up and speak out. You can't just be quiet and say nothing. And you have to be like Muhammad Ali, willing to sacrifice everything for that, you know, because people before you sacrificed everything, and they knew there would come a time where it would be somebody else's chance and you would be that person. And my legacy, I wanted to be okay when I was that person in the room. There's a book that I haven't finished reading. I picked it up. The spook said the spook at the door, and it talked about being in the room, you know. And when you're that black man in that room, and they're talking about black people, you represent black people.
Everybody, right?
It's the
Right.
only
You're
chance
supposed to speak up.
speak up and speak out. And so I believe that's what athletes have the opportunity to do, because they have platforms, they have microphones, televisions. Now we have digital media, digital platforms, and speak to people all over the world. And it's okay to be honest. You know, for some reason or another, our country doesn't want black people to speak about the history. You know, a lot of what we've seen and what we're upset about is because it happened. You know, Black Lives Matter is here today because we want you to know that Black Lives Matter. You feel like they don't matter.
Right.
And we've got examples, things to show, you know, we thought back in the day, we thought Rodney King finally, we got it on video, that would make a difference. No.
Right.
Doesn't make a difference, you know. You didn't see what you saw. That's what it is. You did what you saw, you didn't see that. You didn't see it. So we just have to keep fighting. You know, there's a lot of things have changed. I remember when I was growing up and I was a kid in the 60s, I don't ever recall in my neighborhood or the schools I went to, I don't remember being biracial kids, you know. But now, fast forward this generation, my kids, yeah, they got biracial friends. And so what's happening is there's change happening. You know, people are pursuing relationships with people who they care about, who they love, and don't care what other people say. And there's a different generation of kids. And, you know, some of the younger generation feel different than their grandparents and their parents. And some of them are willing to speak up and speak out about what's right and what's wrong. And they are not willing to look at something on video and say, I didn't see what I saw. They're looking at it, they see it, they believe it. You know, they're doing their own due diligence, and they're coming to a position where they're going to stand up. And they know that this world is in a position where they're going to be in control at some point in some time. And you take your life.
Are you coming to the event?
In Vegas? There's
Yes.
a chance that I may be there. I'm not a golfer. That I am not. But I do want to give a shout out to one of the most influential people in the golf world, and that is Renee Powell. Her father is the late great William Powell, the first black man to design and build a golf course in the United States of America. And Renee is a good friend of mine, and she certainly is a golfer, you know. But
well, maybe you can talk Renee into coming. Well, I'm getting ready to wrap this up. I do want to ask you, I always ask this question. First of all, if there's anything else that you forgot to throw in, now would be the time. If you have something coming up or that you would like to share, that's number one. Number two, is there anything that you would like to say to our younger NFL guys? I mean, you've been there, you've done it all. I mean, if there's any advice that you'd like to throw to our younger NFL brothers out there, any advice, or your younger you, if you had to do it all over again, what do you think about that?
I would like to say to young ball players out there that are playing the game today, and those who are future ball players that are even not aware of the fact that they're going to be in the pros one day. You know, you never know. When you're a kid, you think, and you might you look at it and say, you know, but there's no guarantee. But once that happens, you have a tremendous opportunity to, as we say, to, you know, reach back and help another generation of people, and do everything you can to do that. You know, pay it forward. Woody used to talk about that at Ohio State, and that is, you know, you didn't just walk up to the plate and you know, knock it out the park. You know, like I tell people sometimes, you know, a pinch runner, you know, he pinch running, but you know, he didn't hit the triple. He came in for somebody else was up to they hit the ball, and he came in and pinch running for him. But we've got to pull our resources together. We got to work together. We've got to trust one another. And we got to know that there's very few things on earth today that we cannot do. And one thing about sports is a business. So when it comes to our business of, and the participation of the African-American men and women that are in sports, we've done a tremendous job reaching the pinnacle of our profession. We are some of the best that ever do it,
Right.
And that's just something that we should stop and think about, that if other industries will allow the best people, because that's one thing about sports, it's all about winning and losing, and most people want to win. And there was a time where they didn't care about winning, but now there's so much money involved, they care about winning, so they want the best people in the positions doing those jobs on those fields and those courts. Right. And if we could get other industries to think about the same thing, having the best people in a position to get the job done, regardless of the color of their skins, their industries might take off and have the same kind of success that sports is having across the world.
Right.
But I want to make that happen in esports now that it's here, and it is a sport. They're saying it's a sport. They're going to be awarding scholarships soon at universities across the country, that you can get a full ride to go be on the gaming team, just like you can football, basketball, and baseball. And I want our young kids, Black kids, African-American kids, and others of colors, to know that you can do that. You can get a scholarship in gaming, but I also want you to know that you can also work to support that ecosystem of gaming, the way they bring it to the public. They're going to be podcasts. They're going to be streaming sessions, opportunities. There are going to be opportunities for you to work behind the scenes, on a game. Software engineers, I talked about, developer, all those opportunities within IT that you can fulfill one of those, and it'll be a career for you for a long time. So just want to leave this world in a better place than it was leaving a better place than we found it. And
okay. So I'm going to call you as soon as I click this off, because I do want to ask you a question. Someone else is in our broadcast, so I don't know if you saw him.
Yes. I heard him earlier. I heard him or her earlier. So
you heard him, yes. And he just jumped up on. Thank God we're at the end of this. Get out. We're at the end now. Thank God. Thank you so much, Mr. Ellis. And I'm going to call you because I do want to ask you about the e-gaming. I have a question on that. So thank you very much. We're going to end this broadcast. And thank you guys, everyone, for tuning in. And you have a great day.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much for your time.